welcome to Through the Mist with me, your host, Owen. This is a Royal Inverse Theory podcast where we look at the law and try to understand how it all works. In this episode, we'll be looking at Nymphs versus Nature Gods. Hi everybody, hello. I say everybody weirdly, don't I? Everybody, hello everybody. Hi everyone. How's your life doing? Here's to hoping that it's doing good and not bad, because mine is doing okay. Yes, Miss Busters, hello, welcome back. It's been a while since I've done one of these. I hope you enjoyed last time, even with the audio issues. It was annoying. It was annoying, but we make it work. So we've got a lot to get through this time before we get into the meat of the episode, because I was on a holiday away. So I skipped some questions and didn't have time to do questions. So we have to merge questions. But we've also got other things to mention, because I want to put out there the musical. The Lightning Thief, the musical, is coming to the UK at the other place in London over the winter times. The cast has been fully announced now. It is definitely, it's on, it's all happening, it's all coming. I'm going in the new year. So, go get your tickets, guys. Come on, go get your tickets. It will be a fun time. Let's go and woo, Pudjo. Also, I need to thank Rick, if you're out there. Thank you very much for the cameos in Wrath of the Triple Goddess. It was very kind. Oh, hey, it's like the right capitalization and everything. I'm fully claiming it. If you haven't read it yet, it's nothing. It's just the name of the podcast. It just says Through the Mist. The start of a sentence at one point, so it looks like it's the title of the podcast, because it's got all the right capitalizations. So yeah, thanks Rick, and thanks Erica for pointing it out, because I was late to reading, because as I said, I was on holiday. Talking about being on holiday and being late to things. Questions! So you have questions from both episode 46 and episode 47 to do today before we get into it. Don't worry. 46 question is basically bananas. It will fly through, because for episode 46 was when I was talking about Midgard and the word Midgard. And the question I put out to the Instagrams at through_mist was, where would you put the centre of Midgard? And we got two replies, and the two greatest repliers of the podcast, which are Robert and Darian. We got one from Robert. That one, Denny's in Pennsylvania, and I don't get the reference, Robert. I don't get the reference. And then Darian, more serious answer, in Scandinavia, where the people who told the stories from Norse mythology actually lived. Like, serious answer. And I also agree with that. That's where it should have been, but it's not. It's Boston. And we made it work, guys. So, high five us. And when I say us, I mean me. You do nothing except listen and support this wonderful... No, you do something. You make me feel like I'm not talking to the world, because I can see the number go up. So thank you, my classroom full of listeners. Thank you very much. Episode 47, we had the Muses of Mythology on, and the infamous Darian. So episode 47, we were talking about Camp Half-Blood and all the Camp Half-Blood things, and the question we put out there is there a hidden reason for the Camp Half-Blood existence? We got one reply, which is a relatively long reply, but it's a good answer. It's a very good answer. This is the sort of juicy stuff I crave, so thank you very much, Magical Myth Pod. To find the answer to this question, you first have to find the answer to who invented Camp Half-Blood. Perhaps it was the demigods themselves trying to design a place where they would always be safe from monsters. Or maybe the gods created Camp Half-Blood as a way to keep an eye on their kids whilst training them with the skills they would need to complete a quest. Camp Half-Blood's past has never been determined in the books, therefore its history remains unknown. However, if we learn the creator of Camp Half-Blood, we might become aware of a secret existence within it. That's a great answer. And actually, do you know what? I'm going to add something to my ideas list, because the history of the camps is going on there. And history of the camps. I've got some ideas for Camp Half-Blood, and Camp Jupiter is a bit more narratively structured. And I think there's some things we can imply from the history and mythology about Camp Half-Blood. So we'll definitely look into that, and at some point that is added to the list. It has been added to the list. Let's go. Okay, so actually episode time now, guys. Actual episode time. Don't worry about it. We're back. We're here. We're clear. And we're off.
Brown horse, slightly brown horse, brown horse. Black horse on the outside, black horse and brown horse, blue horse on the outside.
The blue horse from Mars. So, what are we looking at today? Nymphs versus nature gods. So, there was this idea in my episode's idea list, asking if Thalia is now a dryad because of tree. And I'm pretty sure that came from the eldest gods. I'm pretty sure that came from them. So, once again, I'm looking at the nature spirits because of them. I was like, okay, let's see if we can answer that question while also understanding more about how nymphs work in the Roidenverse and the myths. And then I was like, oh, but also, hang on, there was this other thing I wanted to talk about nature gods. So I was like, oh, we'll lump that in. And then, things developed, and here we are now with a very much basis of nymph versus nature god, but we will answer the question, is Thalia a dryad? We will conclude that question, or at least attempt to conclude that question by the end of today's episode. So stick around to find out. Look, this is my like, in like YouTube video world, they're like, oh, you like got to tease it, like you got to tease so they like it's feeling compelled to watch to the end. You got to like set a goal. So my goal, this is the tease. The tease is Thalia a dryad now because of Pine Tree? And then the rest of the episode is nymph versus nature god. So, but let's start with stuff we previously talked about. Recap stuff from episode 35. However, we're going to ignore the satyrs in this context because it's a Rick thing. So what do we know from episode 35, which was nature spirits? That's what we were looking at then. So nymphs, according to the Encyclopedia Britannica, are any large class of inferior female divinities. Okay, so that's what nymph means, like dictionary definition wise. And then most of the time, nymphs are related to some form of nature, so water and sea, trees and forests, marshes and meadows, the sky and the stars, which I think I'm supposed to go back to and talk deeper about those, but not what we're here to talk about today, is it, guys? No. So, like, okay, that was a very quick recap. I'm, like, on the ball today with this. I'm, like, not messing around, he says, while messing around, because I'm trying to fill the time. When we like think of nymphs in the books, we kind of have the big three: naiads, nereids, and dryads. They're like the big three. So the water ones and the tree ones. And then, okay, but what about nature gods? We kind of only have two that we think about, which are rivers and mountains. But wait, hang on a second. But that aren't naiads just like fresh water nature spirits? So aren't they just like river gods? Like there's the yeah, isn't that so? Well, What's the difference between a nature god and nymph? That's right, everybody. Say it with me on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Sexism. 100%. Today, how we view them in today's society is because of current and historic sexisms. How much sexism was involved in the early years? Probably also quite high. And when I say early years, I mean the story when they were living stories or being told and part of the culture when they were the religion of choice. I'm not quite sure. I can't bother to work that out, but I've got a feeling that some of that was in there. So if we think about it like that, for all intents and purposes, nymphs are just another type of god. They just as the Encyclopedia Britannica states, they just have defined by their low and limited powers. Which means the only difference between a naiad, naiads are the sea ones, a naiad or a river god is their sex. That's it. So that's like the main difference. But if we now think about it a bit further and actually look at how it's done in the books, I read basically what happened here is I made a point. It was a good point, but it wasn't exactly what the bullet point was supposed to be, so the next bullet point doesn't make sense unless I go back and contextualize the first bullet point, which is, in the books, the only difference between the nature god and a nymph is power level. It's nothing to do with sex, it's power level. That's how the books are, and we have proof of this because of Joshua Tree and the River Styx. There's high-powered nymphs, which are almost godlike, but I think sexism ruins the fact that we don't have a name for, like, a tree god. Where we can say mountain god, we can't say tree god. So I think that slightly ruins that. But they're dryads. They're still dryads. Strong, powerful dryads. So, the same, the dryads from the book that Joshua Tree appears in. And, like, what I do enjoy about this is it cleanly ties a bow, and now we get, like, okay, so if that's the difference between them, how do we get to the power threshold? So, like, what is the power threshold between what makes something a river god versus what makes something a naiad? This is going to be a short episode. I thought it was going to be longer because I filled out quite a lot of pages, but I suppose there was a lot of rambles and information I had to fill out at the start. And I might just be talking quicker this time. So, when does a nymph become a god? A nymph, nymph is a really broad category. Like, a really broad category. You've got water things, you've got tree things, you've got grass things, you've got sky things. Like, it's huge. You've got the sunset. You've got whatever Calypso is. It's huge. So, how do we determine what that power level is? So we are going to use the water spirits because we have a clear, distinctive boundary between the water spirits that we can compare, because we have naiads and we have river gods. Like, we have that clear distinction in the books. So, naiads. Why do I keep doing that? So we have the bottle naiad by the stables. We have the naiads within the lakes at Camp Half-Blood. Again, we have the naiads from the Lightning Thief and also the one from the Senior Adventures. They're what we would class as the nymphs. Then we have the river gods of the Hudson River, the East River, which is not a river, it is a strait, fully salt water. When I didn't know much about New York geography, I learned that Manhattan was an island and the existence of the two rivers from the Last Olympian. So when I later found out that, like, Queens and Boston are technically on the island of Long Island, I was like, wait, hang on a second, that means the East River isn't a river, it's a strait. So it annoys me that it has a river god. Moving on. We get the Tiber River, and we get the river from the Chalice, Senior Adventure number 1. And then we get the underworld rivers, so you've got River Styx, you've got the other ones, which I think some of the others are called nymphs, but then there's also definitely river god, because of Tastus, sun and the star. So, one of them is definitely a fully river god male as well, So what can we learn from this? Like, what can we derive from all these different, comparing all these different nymphs and Nereids and water deities that aren't Poseidon or Percy Jackson? Woo, bruh, he said it. Woo. And basically, we can just reaffirm something that we've already stated about the Voidiverse. We can use a theory, the ultimate Voidiverse theory, if I do say so myself, as someone who came up with this idea. However, please, everyone, feel free to use it. I don't care. I genuinely don't care. And that is that the Voidiverse works on mortal perception. So, the more important the water source, the more power it has. And the importance and the power of that water source could both be to do with size and physical power, because it could do with the size of the river and how much physical power it would have, how likely it would be to kill you. And that's just because humans, the most important rivers to humans are ones you can get boats down, and the ones that will kill you if you go through. So if it's a small little stream that you can just jump over, it's not gonna be that important to you. It might if you're the small community, because it might be a good local water source, but at the same time, it's not gonna, And also, it makes the East River a river god because, mortal perception, we perceive it as a river even though it's a strait. Like the Menine Straits. A strait. It's salt water. It's not a river. So, if we've established all this about nature spirits and nymphs and gods, what have we learned that we can apply to Thalia being a dryad? Absolutely nothing. We can apply absolutely nothing. So, we're just tacking this on at the end. So, when I was starting tacking this on at the end, I was like, oh, this is going to be simple. This is going to be easy. I thought it was duh, it's going to be a no. However, as I was thinking about how they work and what we know about them, there were some key pieces of information that are kind of unknown. And one of those main ones is is the pine tree connected to Thalia's life force? Are they connected? Are they one and the same? Because we know, one thing we definitely know about dryads in the Voidiverse, their life force is their plant. They protect their plant. But Thalia is now effectively immortal, and the golden fleece is in the tree. So it's hard to know. It's hard to know what Thalia would have to die in battle and the tree die, or she wouldn't die in battle because the tree lived, and she can be a very powerful. I don't think there is a specific rule. I can't remember. I couldn't find anyone talking about it online, but it might be that and she could just be a really powerful dryad and go really far from a tree, or that thing's not a thing and it's something that is a fandom thing but not actually in the book. I couldn't work it out because I'm not reading every single book to find that one specific piece of information. That's too much to read. And the only other way you can kind of answer this question without trying to kill the tree or trying to kill Thalia is, can she vanish into the tree? We know she came out of the tree. Can she go back into the tree? And let's be honest, the likelihood of Thalia trying to go back into the tree, on the down low, on the extreme down low, because trauma. No one's ever you wouldn't. You just wouldn't. You wouldn't attempt to go back into the tree in case you couldn't come out again. However, while I was writing this, I was thinking about the last episode and Camp Half-Blood and what we talked about with Camp Half-Blood and the protective borders. And I have decided that we're going to add an extra bit of headcanon to our lore. And that is, Thalia produced the protective border around Camp Half-Blood, not Zeus. Thalia did it. Zeus turned her into a tree, but like her last instinct was to protect her friends. So when she became a tree, she went, I am powerful, and like created the barrier. Thalia is the barrier. The tree is the barrier. And I want to headcanon that Thalia was the one that created the barrier, not Zeus. And that makes sense why Camp Jupiter has never had anything similar. Because the gods don't want it, but Thalia would give it. I like that. That's nice. But either way, we have not enough evidence for either of those two ideas. Except I'm going to say the second one is definitely true. And Thalia being a dryad? Nah. I want to say no, but evidence could prove me wrong. Thank you for indulging this theory. If you have any comments on this theory or theories of your own that you want me to discuss, you can email them through to through.t.mist@gmail.com, or you can follow the Instagrams @through_mist. Make sure to like the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, follow the podcast, whatever you have to do to help get the podcast out there. I've been Owen, and come back next time as we try to see through the mist. Yeah, well done. That was great.